Okay. Well, what I have here, this is one of my very first projects that I started rebuilding ATVs on. About, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, I decided that as a kid, I always liked to rebuild these things. And it started with dirt bikes, and it went over to quads and 4x4 ATVs and whatever else I can really get my hands on. Even old school trikes, lawn tractors. I just love doing it. Now, this isn't my form of income. This is just a fun thing. I pick these up for pretty cheap, and I end up rebuilding them and then selling them. Now, this one I haven't sold. This was a 1988 Honda Fourtrax 300. The reason why I say was is because the plastics now are changed to a I would say a 1992, because the frames on these are different. Now, the frame comes down in a way that is triangular versus the 93 and up Fourtrax 300s come down and come out and then down and over. Now, these are a harder model to find, but there's not too much of a difference between these and the 92 to the 2000s. And just wanted to give a little background on it. The reason why I've kept this is because of how clean it is. You can see the engine, no leaks. It has very little hours, but the plastics that came with it were horrible. They had all sorts of cracks. They were horribly designed. There was no front rack when I got it. Actually, you can see in some of my older videos that there's no front rack, and it was pretty much really cosmetically bad. And I decided to make it a little bit better. Now, I have all the pieces, but I don't have them on because they're not functional. Oftentimes, I have to jump people on the battery. So I took that. There's a bridge almost and a plastic that covers it. I took that off because you have no access to the battery otherwise. So when people need to jump, hit it on, and that's it. Now, there's a lot of residual mud because, well, I love mudding. And this quad, even though there's the running joke again of Honda three-wheel drive or three-wheel drive in general because of the posi in the front, there's no diff lock on these, one of the very first 4x4 models. And it's still very good in the mud, considering. Now, I took the mud lights off because the front diff started to squeak. I'll have to rebuild the bearings on it because of that. And it really can't handle the mud lights. So these basic tires, I know they're a little dry rotted, but they still work fine. They came with another Honda Fourtrax 300 I did find, and just kind of replaced them. Now, a couple of the updates I've done to this. You can see this on-off switch randomly right here. Strange. You can see that now that we talked about the plastics I updated, I also put in a winch. Now, I have to find a very, very specific bracket that these winches sit on. You can see it right here. Now, in the Honda Fourtrax 300s, the 88 to 92, with this style frame, they had to have a certain bracket to make this winch fit underneath. A lot of people put them on top of the racks. That's very bad because when you're trying to winch out of somewhere, it pulls the quad down unless you go up high. Also, the racks only hold so much weight because if you look at it, they're attached very, very weak. Whereas when you're on this, you're almost right on the frame. You're on actually the bumper and the rack bracket here, but it's attached right where the frame is. Now, this winch is lower center of gravity, so you're going to pull yourself straight out when you need to. Now, I do this actually very often with even pulling my truck out. I had a boat on the back of it one day in the snow, and I had to use the quad to pull it out, and it worked great with the winch. Of course, I was in reverse too. So, that's just a little bit of background on this thing. Well, not only the winch, but also, obviously, I have the ball on there in case I need to pull the boats. I did the brakes. I did anything and everything you can think of. You can still see where I bog this thing. I mud it all the time. But yeah, so this is my first quad that I really liked and wanted to keep. And the point of the switch, which I didn't explain, is that you turn it on and the winch comes out. and then it comes back in. And you can see it when it's on. I'm just going to show you the way this works. So I'm going to hold it, flip, and I'm still holding on. I'm still holding it, flip back on, and it's on. Now the point of that was to save anything that occurred. What I did was I split out the wiring to the battery, put in a switch, and that's it. So if anything gets stuck, you simply hit the switch and it stops doing that. Now that's to prevent any damage done to the front racks or the winch itself. So it's pretty solid. It's a good idea. It's always a smart thing to do. Now, I did the seat cover on this, the plastics. I did some mechanics, but like I said, I had very low amount of hours on it, so I haven't really touched too much of it, just your regular maintenance that needed to be done. And overall, it's a very solid quad. So this video is just showing a little bit about the Fourtrax 300, why I've kept it, and why I don't believe I'll ever get rid of it. So yeah, there it is.